They came from throughout the city and points beyond. To be part of the rich tradition of St. John's basketball. They became much more. More than just the greatest team in the history of the school, they became the city's champions. With 56 postseason tournament appearances, St. John's is one of the most storied programs in the history of NCAA basketball. Throughout the decades, legends such as Dick McGuire, Alan Seiden, Tony Jackson, and Reggie Carter sustained the school's on-court excellence. While Hall of Fame coaches such as Frank McGuire, Joe Lapchick, and Lou Carnesecca guided the Redmen to a seemingly endless string of winning seasons. The Redmen won 4 National Invitation Tournament championships under Lapchick. McGuire had guided them to the NCAA championship game in 1952, which St. John's lost to Kansas. Under Carnesecca, St. John's had made an appearance in a postseason tournament in each of his first 13 seasons as head coach, including 9 NCAA appearances.
Here on Long Island, I think I first came into contact with St. John's during the '79 NCAA tournament when they made a little bit of a run, got to the Elite Eight, lost to Penn in a heartbreaking game, and I guess just kind of realized that that was kind of our local team.
Yet even against this backdrop of high expectations, something special began to develop in the fall of 1981. That's when a 6'7" guard from Brooklyn's Xaverian High School announced his intention to enroll at St. John's the following season.
I saw Chris Mullen was this big. He used to come up to camp. So we knew Chris very young. Of course, we knew all the CYOs, we knew all the JV, so he was a known quantity. And the amazing thing about Chris Mullen, I remember him playing for the city championship right here in the old Alumni Hall. And he was a point guard. He was only 6'1". And the guy grew to be 6'7". So he took all those attributes, took all those skills, and brought him to that position. That's why he could handle. He could see the play before he received the ball. So I knew him way back. He was a known quantity, and there was an affection for him.
Sophomore year, Chris was 5'10". Junior year, Chris was 6'6". That development there, you know, with the ball handling skills, you know, and the perimeter skills, okay, kind of like just took his game to another level. Now, you know, not only was he a perimeter player, but you know, he was, I like to refer to as a basketball player. He played all aspects of the game. He was an inside player. You know, people use numbers. I don't use numbers. He's a player. Is he a 1? Is he a 2? Well, Chris was a 1 through 5.
Well, Chris Mullen was a fabulous high school player at Power Memorial at Xaverian. If you knew a little bit about New York City basketball, certainly you were well aware of him as a high school player. It was a great coup for St. John's to get him. He was an ACC player that Duke wanted, that Virginia wanted, and Mike Krzyzewski still says is the recruit that got away that really haunts him because of how perfect he would have been for Duke's system as well. But he came to St. John's, and from the moment that that was announced that he was going to come to St. John's, that was really something that was very special for guys like us, you know, who grew up playing. Sometimes we'd actually get a chance to play against him if he went to the right playground because he was a gym rat, a year-round gym rat.
The school I guess I really felt sorry for it was at the time Larry Nager was the assistant coach at Virginia. Terry Holland was the head coach, Larry Nager was the assistant coach. And they spent an enormous amount of time recruiting Chris. I mean, they'd come from a national game on Sunday at 2 o'clock to our game at 7 o'clock at night, fly in a 4-seater plane, you know, just to get there to see Chris. Because they knew when they had Sampson there, that give us a shooter, give us the big kid, add a shooter to the mix there, then we have a Final Four potential national championship team.
Mullen was joined on campus that fall by 2 fellow freshmen, power forward Ron Stewart from Long Island, and a 7-foot wide body from Montreal by way of Long Island Lutheran High School, named Bill Wennington.
Playing at the Garden and being part of St. John's at that time was bigger than anything else there was out there, and for me that was very appealing.
The newcomers helped the team make it to the second round of the NCAA tournament, where it dropped a 1-point decision to Alabama. With Mullen leading the way, the team bounced back the next season with a 28-5 record and the school's first Big East tournament championship. Despite another second-round NCAA loss, the future seemed bright on Utopia Parkway.
And we had a wonderful team that year. I mean, I thought that team and that Final Four team were pretty close. They were very, very good players.
That was a very good team, and I think looking back, that helped us prepare for what was to come, because we were good enough. We got to compete at a high level going to the NCAA tournament, and the foundation was really set for us to be successful.
The following fall brought a pair of talented freshmen as Mark Jackson arrived from Bishop Laughlin and Willie Glass found his way up the Garden State Parkway from Atlantic City.
At that time, we had 4 great players. You had Hutchinson and Benjamin Franklin. You had the kid Smith at Malloy. You had Mark Jackson at Laughlin. And you had the Pearl at Boys High. So naturally, we recruited them. And I think we said, we'll take the first one that comes. If you want to come. Mark Jackson called him after we recruited him, says, I'm coming. Case closed. And it's the best thing we ever did.
Mark was a real student of the game. And to get him a point guard that understands to pass first rather than shoot was so important. So when he decided to come, we were extremely happy.
Willie Glass is a player who, with a 40-inch vertical leap, 6'5", but jumped through the ceiling.
But quietly. You never knew he was there, except when he jumped. He didn't come down for a week.
A first-round NCAA exit at the hands of Temple brought an early end to their 1983-84 season. But the Redmen were determined to make amends the following year.
Really, it was Final Four or bust, and that was our goal that year.
The plan to make the 1984-85 season one to remember received a huge boost with the arrival of junior forward Walter Berry. Berry was a playground legend from the Bronx and had been a heavily recruited star from Benjamin Franklin High. But the Truth, as he was known, spent the first 2 years of his collegiate career at San Jacinto Junior College in Texas, where he earned JUCO All-American honors.
He's a left-hander, never shot the ball from the same place twice. I mean, one first time he'd shoot it from here, next time here. I mean, the ball was going all over to shoot. You couldn't block his shot. And it just had the ability for a wiry guy at the time to get down the low post, great footwork, great knack for getting to the basket, being able to score, and really gave us an inside scoring presence.
And Walter Berry inside was difficult. You know, you just really couldn't stop him. He had the unorthodox left-handed game around the basket, and you really couldn't do much with him. You just try to force him to take a jump shot, but he always found a way to get to the basket. And again, with Chris Mullin and Walter Berry is probably as good a combination inside and outside as we've had in the Big East. They could beat you in so many ways, and they usually did.
I didn't know anything about Walter Berry until we actually played them. Walter Berry was a great player, a great pick, a great addition to that team. Left-handed, power forward, had an awkward-looking shot, but it went in. Sort of a push shot, but very skilled.
Well, when you had Walter, who fit right in there with us, and you had Bill in the middle, Walter Berry the power, me at the small, Chris at the 2, then Mark at the point, him and Mike Moses. When you have a team like that, it's like you look at it now, you'd be like, oh, what an awesome squad.
Walter Berry was the kind of player that made that difference, that took a very good team and made them special. And his influence was obvious, and you could tell right away that Mullin was excited, because here's a guy, Chris Mullin was a guy who loved to pass the ball, who loved to run the break, who loved to have a guy that he could, kind of have a radar connection with. And Berry, right away, you could see they really had that connection.
With Patrick Ewing back for his senior year, most experts figured Georgetown to be the odds-on favorite to defend its national title. But Berry's return to New York instantly put the Redmen in the conversation when it came to title contenders. St. John's was ranked 7th in the AP preseason top 20.
I don't think there's any question that this was Louis' best team ever. I mean, he had 5 players who were franchise talents.
The high expectations surrounding the Redmen were impossible to ignore, even within their own ranks.
We were supposed to go to the Final Four. Anything less, and this is not trying to be braggadocio or anything like that, if we didn't go, it would have been a terrible disappointment, because we had the team, we had the experience, we had the players, so not to go would have left the thirst.
As the season dawned, all the pieces seemed in place for a run at the top. Mullen and Berry formed a lethal 1-2 combination, with Wennington in the middle and Glass at the other forward. Mike Moses, a Manhattan native who had transferred from the University of Florida, ran the offense at the point, with Jackson coming off the bench. Two more key additions, freshman Shelton Jones from Amityville and junior swingman Ron Rowan, a transfer from Notre Dame, became valuable contributors. The 6'9" Jones, nicknamed the Horror, quickly worked his way into the front court rotation. And Rowan proved to be a reliable weapon from the perimeter. Freshman forwards Rob Cornegay and Terry Bross and freshman guard Steve Sharina provided depth off the bench.
I really, from day one when I stepped on campus at St. John's, I really felt like we were a contender. I mean, I didn't know much about other teams. I knew names, but I never saw them in, like, you know, so I wasn't really intimidated by that, but I knew what we had. And I really felt like from the beginning that we could do something special.
We had a special team in the fact that it didn't matter if Chris was scoring every night, if Walter was scoring every night, if I was scoring every night, if Ronnie Stewart, the bench guy that came in and backed me up that year, if he was doing well. Everyone was happy for everyone else to do well. We just wanted to win.
And the practices were really competitive. Guys came to work every day. It wasn't like they were going through the motions. And I think that's what really helped us because of the practice situation, that these guys would work so hard. And we had some unbelievable scrimmages and practices that sometimes the games became easy.
I mean, you knew something was coming. And the big thing about it, they played well together. It was a very unselfish team. Very unselfish.
The Johnnies broke from the gate with 5 straight victories, but it wasn't easy. St. John's escaped with back-to-back one-point wins at Alumni Hall against St. Bonaventure and Fordham. Then, in mid-December, they headed upstate to meet Niagara.
It probably caught us at a very good time where we hadn't really established our chemistry, our cohesiveness.
The preseason hype seemed very far away as Niagara posted a 62-59 victory.
They beat us. That wasn't a freak. You can't blame the referee. You can't blame anybody. They beat us. Well, and that sort of might have been a wake-up call, because then we went on a roll and we won quite a few games.
They have nothing to lose, and they figure if they knock you number one off, that makes their whole season. They can lose the rest of the game. And I think we went in there a little, you know, class like, this is Niagara, okay, let's just go through the motions. And Niagara played well. It's like they wanted them more. And then by the time we started opening up our eyes, it was a little late. But that opened the doors for us to say, we can't sleep on nobody.
I think when we lost to Niagara, I think that kind of put us on track. If you could look at that. I know it's kind of an oxymoron, but we lost, but it put us on track because what we started to do was take it more serious. Because we knew we were talented, we knew we had the players, we knew we had the coach, we knew we were prepared. It's just sometimes you can have a letdown when you're not playing a team that you think is as good. And what that loss did to us, it showed us that we couldn't take anybody lightly. On any given night, that anyone could beat you. You know, so we had to come in prepared mentally and physically every single night. I think that was the best thing that happened to us that year, was losing to Niagara.
If the loss to Niagara was a wake-up call, it served its purpose. A week later, it was back to business for the Redmen with a convincing 88-69 win over perennial power UCLA at Madison Square Garden.
I don't specifically recall a specific point in time where we said, hey, this could be special. I believe that we thought that at the beginning of the year, that you know we got a real opportunity. We got a good team. We could be pretty good. And I think that grew as our confidence grew. Obviously, UCLA was a big step. Madison Square Garden, that was huge. But every game after that, you know, it kind of snowballs and gets bigger and bigger.
Next up was the ECAC Holiday Festival at the Garden. Victories over Old Dominion and North Carolina State gave St. John's the tournament championship and put the team back on course as it headed into its Big East schedule.
And we felt that we were getting better. We felt that we were getting stronger. We felt we were learning one another, especially with the acquisition of Walter Berry, integrating him into the team. And we felt we were going in the right direction. We felt, we really going into the Big East after winning those games in the Holiday Festival. We felt we had it solidified what we were believing, what we thought we can do.
The Big East in 1985 looked a lot different from the current version. With 9 teams based in the Northeast, it was a true regional league. Annual home-and-home series helped create strong rivalries, and the talent level was unsurpassed by any conference in the country. From Patrick Ewing at Georgetown, to Ed Pinckney at Villanova, to Pearl Washington and Ronnie Cycli at Syracuse, and to Michael Adams at Boston College, the league was full of big-time talent.
You went to war every night, therefore it prepared you for any eventuality. I mean, it did. I mean, every night it was a war, and that's the way the leagues are. I remember Coach Frank McGuire saying to me, "Lou, now that you're in the league, the honeymoon is over. You're gonna have to play him twice. It's Sunday." So yeah, it got you ready for anything.
Back then, the Patrick Ewings and the Chris Mullins stayed for 4 years, and the bad news was when you saw them as freshmen, you knew they were going to still be there for the next 3 years.
It's like in the Big East, anybody can knock off anybody, so you have to go in there, guns up. You know, if they was in last place in the Big East, that didn't matter, because they're going to give you 110%, and they're going to push you. So it was rarely blowout games. So that made us better.
Big East was on top. The Big East was the I'm gonna call it the Mecca, because in that year we had 3 teams playing the Final Four. Everybody wanted to play in the Big East back then.
The irony of the Big East then is you had no chance to even win the league unless you had 4 pros, because every roster, at least 4 guys that were going to play at the next level up. I mean, and St. John's had not only had 4 pros, but they had guys who were first-round picks and ended up playing the league multiple years.
To succeed in the Big East required more than talent. It called for leadership on and off the court, and the REDMEN had it in abundance, especially in their senior tri-captains, Mullen, Wennington, and Stewart.
We knew that every day we went on the floor, the 3 captains made sure that we were focused about what we were doing. There was no day that we went into practice without an objective.
They were complete ball players, and that inspired the other fellas to do the same.
The biggest thing that I could say the veterans helped me out with was school, especially Ron Stewart. He was a very serious student, took study hall and everything very serious. And that's one of the things that I learned the most, of how to buckle down and actually get my schoolwork done.
Well, Mullen was the type of guy, it's like when I was a freshman, I had a bad situation in one game where I think I lost the game, where I made a bad pass, and instead of them like, "Oh man," he just come grab me like, "Don't worry about it, we got another one coming up," and things like that. When you have guys like that, your confidence don't go down.
They were like coaches on the court. They were very close to Coach Conaseca and the staff, and were able to carry out his directions and his wishes as to how to handle the team.
Well, I tell you, if those guys never bounced the ball, they'd still be great individuals, great St. John's people, and they're great people. That's it. That's the basic thing. I think that's what's one of the important things about that group of people. They were good people to begin with. Know how to get along, know how to give of themselves. And they really displayed that not only on the court, but off the court.
The REDMEN opened the new year with 3 straight wins at the Garden, including a 5-point decision over Villanova. Then it was off to Pittsburgh, where a drafty Fitzgerald Fieldhouse provided one of the season's defining moments.
I had gotten the flu, and I was home, recuperating, and now we had to go out and play Pittsburgh. But prior to that, an Italian coach who was the Italian women's Olympic leader, he says, you exchange gifts, and he gave me 2 sweaters. I'm not going to say that they were beautiful sweaters, but they were some would say, strange-looking sweaters. The color combinations, the makeup, you had to determine what is it, okay? So I took them and threw them in the closet. Now, that week, I was sick. Mary says, "Look, you're going out to Pittsburgh. Those gyms are drafty. Get a sweater." So I went in and just grabbed anything, threw it in the bag, and now we're out at Pittsburgh, and we're getting dressed and ready to go out to play on the court. So I take the sweater and put it on. I notice all the kids look at me. Where did he get that thing?
And he'll tell the story that he had a cold and Mary threw it in. He said, "You got to wear a sweater. You're not feeling good." You know, I'm sure that's what he tells everyone, but I think it was his favorite sweater. I think he picked it out on purpose.
It was ugly. No, it really was. I mean, it was a very ugly sweater. But Coach was sick, and he needed something to keep him warm. And it's unbelievable what it became.
Brown and red and blue stripe. Oh my, it's. But you know what? And it's one of those things where if that's what you think it is, then that's what it is. And if that's what's it's gonna take to keep things going, keep it going.
I really believe this is the genius that he has. He did that to kind of take the pressure off us. You know what I mean? Like people started paying attention to him and his sweater and different things like that. And it even made it lighter for us. You know what I mean? When he did that. And I think that we took that and ran with it.
With Louis' sweater working its magic, St. John's rolled to its 7th straight victory, 87-56. And the sweater was on the sidelines to stay.
The sweater was just an added thing, but it was good. It took the tightness, it took all that. I think it's sort of a tough ball, especially when you play Georgetown, those clubs like that. There was a lot of intensity, and that opened it up. People talked about the sweater, took your mind over.
The winning streak reached 9 as the Redmen knocked off Boston College on the road by 7. Then came home to the Garden to beat 12th-ranked Syracuse 82-80 in an overtime thriller.
I remember we had control of the game and we found a way to not win it. That's what I remember, and it was a tough loss. We usually were able to finish games, and again, Chris Mullen and Walter Berry made plays. In fact, Walter Berry made a jump shot to tie it, which he never does. And but that's what happened when you play great teams. They find a way to get the job done. And well, you try to make sure Chris Mullen didn't get a lot of open looks. I mean, that's what you tried to do, and keep Walter Berry away from the basket as much as you could, but it's very difficult to do that with great players. And we contained both of them a little bit, but not quite enough to get a win.
As the victories mounted, the Johnnies became big news in New York. St. John's games at the Garden became a happening, and near-capacity crowds were commonplace.
The experience of playing in Madison Square Garden was everything that I thought it would be, and absolutely 100 times more.
The magnitude of having St. John's at a high level at the Garden would bring back basketball to New York, because basketball was absolutely dead. We had the emergence of the Big East, and now we're keeping 2 All-Americans home, Wennington as well as Mullen, at St. John's with a lot of complementary players to play with them. The magnitude of that changed basketball for a period of time with the Big East in New York.
I think the biggest impression I had at the Garden was the people that I met. We're talking about the Knicks players. I got a chance to meet the New York Knicks players who were really close with the management and different things like that, but the celebrities. When we were coming up in college at that time, there were a lot of young singers, rappers, actors, and different things that were coming out also who were the same age as us. So I really got to have a little camaraderie and different things with those guys where I otherwise wouldn't have had a chance to do so.
Not only had a great on-campus atmosphere at Alumni Hall, but they also, once they played at the Garden and you started playing a ranked schedule, those games became a wonderful atmosphere, became every bit the atmosphere the Knicks were when they were winning. And certainly when St. John's themselves became a national power, Chris Mullen, Walter Berry, all those guys, it became a destination place, and it really was as loud as the building has ever gotten.
It seemed like the 19,000, almost 20,000 were like hovering over you. And it was like you were engulfed in a sea of, just craziness.
I still dream about it. Like, there's a lot of nights I'm dreaming, I jump out of my sleep because it's so fantastic. I don't think there's anything besides meeting Christ. I don't think there's anything that would be more exciting than playing in the Garden. I still think about it. Even now thinking about it, my hands get a little moist and I get excited just thinking about the fans in the Garden. And one thing that I remember most about playing in the Madison Square Garden is it didn't matter how I felt. If I didn't feel good that day or anything was going on, once you stepped on the Garden floor, everything's out of the window. It's the most awesome arena in the world.
But the Garden and its home crowd wouldn't be able to help Carnesecca's crew in their next game. a showdown on the road against top-ranked Georgetown.
St. John's is a great team that had a great coach in Carnesecca, and they had great players with Chris and Walter Berry and the rest of those guys, Mark. But we felt that we were the best team in the country at that time.
The Hoyas came into the game riding a 29-game winning streak. St. John's came into it ranked second in the country, and knowing that it had to find a way to contain Ewing.
You had to play a little more physical with Patrick. I mean, but he was much more athletic than I was. I mean, not that I wasn't a good athlete, but he could run around me. Great going to the boards. You had to really focus on putting a body on him. You had to bump him off the block, force him outside. Because if you got the ball around the basket, he was going to be able to finish at the hoop. So you had to force him outside a little bit to get it. Hopefully, take a jump shot from the outside, and obviously rely on your teammates to come down and help out and dig and just crowd him a little bit more. But it was one of those things where I wasn't too concerned about it because I knew what I had to do and just play physical. Otherwise, he'd jump over me and dunk the ball in my head, and no one wants to have that.
When you think about St. John's and Georgetown in those years, everybody in New York knew St. John's players backwards and forwards. Mullen had been there for 4 years. Mark Jackson, the local kid, he was there his second year. Bill Wennington was there 4 years. Ron Stewart was there 4 years. And Georgetown was the same way. They could become a villain in your minds just because you were so familiar with these players, because you knew about David Wingate, you knew about Reggie Williams, certainly you knew about Patrick Ewing and Bill Martin. These are guys that you've been rooting against for 4 years, so it was like a pro team in that you were able to build a rivalry.
Strong interior defense by Wennington and his teammates forced Ewing to kick it back out, and the Hoyas struggled from the outside, shooting 36% in the first half. With St. John's holding a 43-34 lead early in the second half, Berry took over, popping from the baseline in the key, dropping in a floater over Ewing, hitting Mullen and Moses for jumpers, and blocking 4 shots. The Redmen led 57-39 with just over 10 minutes to go, and then withstood a furious Georgetown rally to hold on for a 66-65 victory. Berry finished with 14 points and 13 rebounds. Mullen had a team-high 20 points.
Well, the final few seconds when it was clear that St. John's was going to be able to hold them off, there was a feeling of euphoria because not only did you beat Georgetown, but all of a sudden it was pretty clear that St. John's, this Catholic school tucked away in Queens and New York, was going to be the #1 team in the country, and whoever would have believed that could have happened.
They did surge back into the game and get back, but we were able to win and hold on and weather the storm of their onslaught coming back to win a basketball game. And that was when I think we really, I believe we got the #1 ranking or something shortly after that or right after that game, when everyone started saying, you know what, maybe we are really good.
I kind of wanted to just end my career on that. That would have been an awesome way to end the career. It was probably the best feeling we had because it really showed us what we were capable of doing.
To get the win was a confirmation that we're for real.
St. John's was now the top-ranked team in the country, and the small campus in Queens was suddenly a magnet for the local and national media.
We became kind of the spotlight of the city, and there was a news crew on campus doing an interview of the team, of Chris, of Coach, and so all of a sudden it became Hollywood East or whatever you want to say for a short while.
I think this is a team that everybody fell in love with in New York because New York tends to be a pro town. Let's face it. I mean, with the Yankees, Mets, Jets, Giants, and Knicks, it's hard to grab a space. But they were so good that the New York papers were actually covering them like a pro team. And they were covering them every day.
The job of keeping the team grounded fell to Coach Carnesecca and his staff.
You got to give a lot of credit to Coach for doing that, to making us understand that, hey, that's not what we're here for. We're not here to get your face on TV, to get a poster up. We're here to win. And we have goals that we set, and we want to win the Final Four, and that's what we're here for. So all this stuff is just distractions. And the coach had another one. He goes, headlines today, fish wrapper tomorrow. It's, you got to perform every night.
Coach did an excellent job of keeping us in the reins when we were #1. But it was a lot of pressure on us though in New York because New York Knicks weren't doing so good at the time. The New Jersey Nets weren't so good at the time, so everybody's hopes were on us. Even when we would meet the New York players, it would seem like we were the professionals and they were the college players. They'd be so excited to meet us and talk to us.
Coach had a way to keep us in tow, and it didn't take a lot. It didn't take a lot. is a couple of, maybe just a really tough drill, a really hard tongue lashing, or sometimes just to stop and look at us, like what are you doing? And we understood. We understood.
It was just the latest example of Lou Carnesecca understanding exactly what his players needed. For the veteran coach, 1984-85 was the pinnacle of his 24 seasons at St. John's and of a coaching career that started at St. Anne's High School in Queens in 1950. He became an assistant at St. John's under Joe Lapchick in 1957. And aside from 1970 through 1972, when he spent 3 years coaching the New York Nets in the ABA, he was a fixture on campus until his retirement in 1992.
And at the time, Coach Lapchick was the coach, and then Coach Frank McGuire. And the big thing is they would allow me to come in and observe, listen to the halftime talks, do some scouting just for my own of them. The old Crow's Nest, Madison Square Garden, the old garden. So there was that love of basketball. And then, of course, when I graduated, I got the coaching job at St. Anne's Academy, which was a little Catholic school on the east side of Manhattan. Was there 7-8 years, and then they asked me to come over here and become assistant coach to Coach Lapchick. And then one thing led to another, and when Coach Lapchick retired in 1965, I was asked to coach the St. John's team.
His teams won 526 games. He was named National Coach of the Year in 1983 and 1985. And in 1992, Lou Carnesecca was inducted into the Naismith Hall of Fame. But it was what their coach did away from the limelight that his players remember the most.
Coach, first and foremost, is a father figure friend. I mean, he's going to take you in, and I remember him would eat at restaurants, and he'd be worried about, I'm going to show the guys, the proper way, the manners, and everything like that. Really teaching you every aspect of life, not just what to do on the basketball court. Once you get on the court, no holds barred. I mean, he was energetic. You see him jumping up and down on the sidelines, making his crazy dances with his hands. And he was like that all the time. And he was funny. And he would get on you, use terms that maybe you've never heard before. I was called the big schlunk, and things like that, but never demeaning. It never demeans you, never made you feel less of a man, less of a person.
So I have so many experiences being on the road or being at the pregame meals and different things where Coach Carnesecca was definitely like a father to us. I mean, he watches us, and if there's anything that he sees, anything wrong with our shoes, clothes, or anything, he always takes the time to let us know. I mean, he usually does it with a joke or something, so we won't be too uptight about it, but he always gets his point across.
Coach was more like, we can go and talk to him anytime, and if we had a problem, he would like, let me show you something. He would call us in and this is what I think you need to do that will help you more. And it was like, your father there telling you this will make you even a better ball player.
If you beat him, he'd praise you. There was never any excuses. There was never blame something on the referees or players or anything. And if he won, he was always just a great, gracious winner and saying good things about your team, and he's one of the great people that we've ever had in coaching.
I don't think I ever changed the way I coach. Get good players. That's the key.
After their dramatic win at Georgetown, Carnesecca's good players reeled off 9 more victories in a row to defend their #1 ranking. Overall, the Redmen had won 18 in a row when Georgetown paid a return visit to the Garden in late February.
The second time we played them, we were already mad that we lost to them in D.C. We're playing in New York. We're staying on 42nd Street. And I just remember walking back and forth to going to get something to eat. And it's all the fans, the St. John's fans, that was just talking so much trash about how they were going to kick our butts. And I think that just adds fuel to the fire,
Despite the pregame tension, Georgetown coach John Thompson found a way to lighten the mood.
As usual, before the game starts, we go over and shake hands. So as I go to shake hands with Big John, he's got his jacket closed up like that. I says, "What, you got a cold?" I said, No. So then, just as well as to shake hands, he opens it up, and there he has a replica of my sweater. Really know how to hurt a guy, really? You're wearing my sweater. And he started to roar. I said, I didn't mind him wearing my sweater. What really hurt, he beat us in the game. That really hurt.
So John Thompson came out with his fake sweater, his fake Louis Carnesecca sweater, and that was a little disconcerting because you never saw John Thompson smile much.
But once the game started, it was all business and all Georgetown. The Hoyas started fast and rolled to an 85-69 win.
Pretty much the way we approached it, like, all right, you know, we know we're going to face them again in a couple of weeks at the Big East tournament. So how can we grow from this?
I give Coach Carnesecca a lot of credit for keeping us under wraps after the Georgetown game, because he made it seem like, not that they were supposed to beat us, but we shouldn't feel bad about it. You know, we were going to get a chance to play them again, you know what I mean, and just learn from this and prepare from it.
St. John's ended its regular season 3 days later by beating Providence at Alumni Hall. It was the last game on campus for Bill Wennington, Mike Moses, Ron Stewart, and of course, Chris Mullin, who in 4 years had transformed from a highly regarded recruit to the greatest player in St. John's history.
And I remember the summer before we played up in Syracuse in the sports festival, and he was playing with Patrick Ewing and Michael Jordan and quite a few of the players that would go on and have great college careers. And I came back and Coach said to me, and said, "Well, what do you think?" And I said, "Well, I don't want to," because he always puts things down. I said, "I think we got the best player in the country." He said, "You're kidding me, Chris. You know, he's from Brooklyn." Blah, blah, blah. As it turned out, he was one of the better players in the country.
Even though he would average 20, 21 points a game, he always looked to pass first. And some of the most memorable Mullin moments for me are passes he made. I remember a pass he made against Georgetown his junior year and against Syracuse at Alumni Hall. And these are these are moments that, you know, usually when you think about a player, you think about a dunk he made or executed or a shot he made at the end of a game. In the same way that Larry Bird, a lot of time, I think you talk to a lot of Celtics fans, their favorite Larry Bird moments are passes. I think I have that with Chris Mullin.
In the victory over Providence, Mullin tossed in 18 points to lead the way. It was a fitting performance for his final game on campus and the latest memorable performance in a spectacular career. Playing in the era before there was a three-point shot or a shot clock, Mullin finished his career as the program's all-time leading scorer with 2,440 points. He shot 55% from the floor for his career, including more than 57% in both 1982-83 and 83-84.
What made Chris such a great player was his work ethic. One, he was for everything that I know about him now and what I heard about him then, he was just a gym rat, always in the gym. He was an outstanding shooter. His constant movement, always, on the move. I remember we played him one time, we played a boxing one on him. And it was still even tough to try to stop him because he was just, constantly moving. And I think that's what made him so great.
Chris Mullin was, I think, the best player we've ever played against at Syracuse. He just beat you so many ways. He could make the pass, he could make the shot, he could get a rebound if he needed to. He wasn't a great defender, but he seemed to come up with a couple key steals when he had to. We've seen a lot of great players in the course of the history of the Big East, but nobody, and certainly no perimeter player, was ever as good as, I think, Chris Mullin.
One of the stories I like to tell about Chris is, we're running our offense, and I go down and set a screen for Chris, and he's coming up to the foul line. Well, Mark Jackson has the ball over on the right wing, and my screen wasn't really on a low post. It was out on a wing a little bit so Chris could curl, and basically we're trying to get Chris a shot at the foul line. And Chris comes up, catches the ball, and without looking, throws it over his head to me. And I'm doing what I do. I cut to the basket, and I catch it, and I dunk, and I'm thinking to myself, how'd the ball get to me? And Chris didn't look. And you go back, I'm watching the news that night, and of course it's on the news, and I go to Chris the next day. I said, Chris, you didn't know what, because I wasn't there. I was cutting. I said, how'd you know to throw it? He goes, Billy, he said, I know you run the offense.
But the story of Chris Mullin is much more than what he did before packed houses and on national television. It was the long hours spent in the gym, often alone, developing the skills that would earn him the Wooden Award as the College Player of the Year in 1985. He'd also win 2 Olympic gold medals, including one as a member of the original Dream Team in 1992. and become the 7th picked in the NBA draft and perennial all-star with the Golden State Warriors, the team he'd eventually lead from the front office as general manager.
And I think the thing that was unique about him, I always used to tell people, he was about 50 points, had a 50-point higher IQ than most people when it came to the game. You know, and as he got older, it was always, he was too slow, he can't jump, you know, he can't do certain things. But yet the real good coaches used to come and recruit him, used to see the things that we saw, the intangibles. You know, the work ethic, the intelligence on the court, and you know, how well he played with his teammates, how he made people around him, players around him better.
He put himself in game situations when nobody's on the floor. And then the game comes and he's actually in those situations.
Chris couldn't jump. Chris used to have this little tactic that he used to rebound, where he would somehow with his timing, because he understood timing for him was very important, he was able to go up and maybe pin the ball on the glass to give him enough time to be able to get back down and get back up and get it.
In practice, it's an amazing thing when we would scrimmage. He would never shoot. He would be working on the parts of the game like his passing, how to set up people. He would come in and shoot 3 hours his own on the shooting drills. But he worked on the things that needed work.
The start of the Big East tournament also marked the start of the final chapter of Mullen's collegiate career. This time, Berry led the way with 23 points and 12 rebounds in a rout of Providence. Berry duplicated that effort in the semifinal round against Villanova, scoring 22 points and grabbing 11 rebounds in an 89-74 victory. The win set up a third showdown with Georgetown for the Big East Championship.
The Garden has never been louder for a college game in my mind. I can't imagine it can ever get any louder than it was that night because there was just so much passion in the air.
Despite the high stakes, the night started with a laugh, as Coach Carnesecca had an answer for John Thompson's imitation sweater from the last meeting.
Nobody remembers, or very few, that Coach Carnesecca got back at Coach Thompson. At halftime, he came out, and we know that Coach Thompson always had a white towel over his shoulder. And Coach Carnesecca came out, and the managers had fastened together 3 or 4 white towels together and fastened it to Coach Carnesecca. And when he came out, they were holding it like the train of royalty. And the crowd, of course, loved it and went crazy.
He came out with a long towel, because John always wore the towel. So it took all the intensity out of the game. Even though the game was heated, the people saw something different. It wasn't World War III. It was still college guys playing.
But the title and the top seed in the East went to Georgetown as the Hoyas pulled away in the second half for a 92-80 victory.
The Big East Championship loss, I think, stuck around a little bit more, and it created a little bit of doubt in some of our minds. And it's like, geez, you know what? This really didn't go well. What can we do? And can we get it back? Can we beat Georgetown? I mean, they got our number. Things just weren't going well. So I think, and sometimes when you create that little bit of doubt, that's all it takes.
He jumped on us a little fast, and you know, I think we could never get it going. But when we lost that game, that opened up our eyes, saying, okay, this is what we have to do if we want to get further than what we did, because it's like they jumped on us. I mean, jumped on us really good.
Despite the loss, St. John's entered the NCAA tournament as the top seed in the West Regional and headed to Salt Lake City.
I think it helped us because it gave us an opportunity to get away from our comfortable environment and have to overcome some battles. And we struggled a little bit in the first couple of games. I mean, things didn't go as smoothly as you hoped. Arkansas was a big game. I mean, Joe Klein was battling against Joe was, for me, it was tough. Obviously, Joe was as tall as I am, probably a little bit bigger at that time, weight-wise, and just I remember that was a battle. But we were able to come away, and I think we got that momentum back out in Utah.
The Redmen quickly dispatched Southern in the first round.
You know, I went to a Catholic high school in Long Island, Chaminade High School, and it was unheard of to bring your radio to class or anything, but I think the religious and the brothers there understood that this was a special day because it was St. John's playing in the middle of the afternoon in the NCAA tournament.
So to get past that first game got us into the tournament. I mean, got us really into the NCAA tournament and got us really hungry.
Next up was Arkansas, and a scare.
They had a very good team. I mean, there was tough, great coach in Eddie Sutton, who was tough defensively.
We were very fortunate to win that game. That game was possession by possession. It was like a real chess match.
Mullen scored 26 as the Johnnies pulled out a 68-65 win and advanced to the Sweet 16 in Denver and a date with Kentucky.
I think Lou said important for us to get there early. And what we did, we flew into Denver and we went down to the Air Force Academy and we worked out about 3 days down there. And that was good just to get used to the height difference. And I think he understood that more than anybody because of the years he played, coached the ABA, the New York Nets. And that altitude can take its toll, and it takes a few days to adjust to playing in that climate.
Fully adjusted, St. John's advanced with an 86-70 victory over the Wildcats. Mullen tossed in 30, and Berry grabbed 12 rebounds in the final game for Kentucky's legendary coach, Joby Hall, who had announced his retirement.
It was another team effort. I think everyone played well. I remember Walt, I think, had a pretty good game, and Chris was playing well. And it was a game, it was, again, a high-profile game when you're playing Kentucky. Things are going on. I remember after the game, Sports Illustrated had a big story on us. And it was, again, confidence was building again. We started feeling really good about ourselves.
When we went to the tournament, those games felt easier. I mean, I know it looked like it was tough games, but being prepared, playing against those Big East teams all year, I felt like our run in the tournament was a lot easier.
All that stood in the way of a trip to the Final Four was North Carolina State and its colorful coach, Jim Valvano. With Carnesecca and Valvano on the sidelines, the press had nicknamed the game the Spaghetti Western.
I can remember the feeling of, oh no, when they had to get past North Carolina State, because obviously NC State was coached by Jim Valvano, a guy who, but for St. John's, a lot of New Yorkers would have been rooting for in that tournament, because certainly 2 years earlier when North Carolina State made its trip through the NCAA tournament, Valvano, a local guy himself, also born in Queens, in Corona, Queens, grew up on Long Island, was a guy that a lot of New Yorkers pulled for, a lot of New Yorkers liked, and was also a guy who had obviously proven he knew how to win in March.
St. John's led by 3 with less than 7 minutes to play. But with 5'7" Spud Webb now guarding him, Mullen took advantage of the mismatch, converting a layup into a three-point play and drilling an 18-footer to give the Redmen a 56-48 advantage. 6 straight St. John's free throws extended the lead to 65-55 with 1:22 left and sparked an uncharacteristic early celebration by its coach.
When the time was winding down against North Carolina State and we knew we were going to make the Final Four, it just meant that all of our hard work, I'm smiling thinking about it, because I remember Coach he waits till the clock goes. He never celebrates, he never gives 5, but we knew, and Coach could not stand it himself. He went and high-fiving guys, hugging us. It was the most awesome experience. I never saw him like that, because it's always business until the horn goes off, but he giving us high fives.
As the clock ticked down, reality sunk in. The Johnnies were heading to the Final Four.
Well, of course there was a relief, yes, because that's where you were supposed to go. But I think sometimes you have to look at it the other way. I mean, you say, well, there's so much pressure because you have to go. I think it's better than having so much pressure you're going to lose all your games. So I think that was a good pressure. You had the players and keep them together. That was the big thing.
The last minute and a half of the game, we're kind of like, wow, we've done it. We're going to the Final Four. It's like this is what we worked so hard for. And all of a sudden it becomes euphoric, because you're realizing a dream. You're realizing something that you've planned for and worked for all year long.
When St. John's made it to the Final Four, I can remember the first instinct that me and my friends had was to go out and play basketball. I went to a playground on Long Island and found a game, and I don't think there was any better tribute that we could pay to them.
The celebration was underway, and it continued through the team's arrival back home.
Oh, the ride back after we beat NC State to get to the Final Four. What was the movie, Manhouse or Party House, or I don't know. But let me tell you, between taking off and landing, that was the only time we were in our seats.
Coming back after the North Carolina State game, when we realized we were going to be in the Final Four, that's when I felt like a rock star.
At the Final Four in Lexington, St. John's was paired against a familiar and dangerous foe, Georgetown. With Villanova facing Memphis State in the other national semifinal, the Big East had 3 teams in the Final Four, the first time in history that one conference had accomplished that feat.
That was unusual, really unusual at 3. We could have had 4. BC, lost in the last minute or so. Could have been 4 for 4, not bad.
What I remember most about the Final Four when we first arrived was we got there about 1, 2 in the morning, but they were cheerleaders, there was a band, there was people out to welcome us, and it just started from there. It was all downhill from there. We all, after that, they treated us like professionals. And just the excitement of it, the practices, there were 20,000 people in the gym for practice, and different things like that. It just really opened my eyes up to what big time basketball is really all about.
Honestly, I really believe we got caught up in the Final Four. I really do. I think we got caught up, number one, in the fact that we arrived to our destination. And then once we got to the actual destination, I think we lived too much in the moment of the Final Four, and I don't really believe we focused in on winning the championship.
The surroundings may have been new, but the results all too familiar. The Hoyas broke out on top early and never looked back, rolling to a 77-59 victory.
I give Georgetown credit. They played a box and one, and they shut Chris down. They made it really hard to get Chris the basketball, much less get him a good shot. And whether the screens weren't being set well, whether they just had, I remember him just rotating guys in and out. Every whistle, there was another guy coming in to guard Chris. And it was just, it became a chore to get him the ball.
I think it's tough on the seniors because, like you said, just like when you're in high school, when you're a senior and you that close knowing you could have won the real big one, it's like, it's hard, you just grabbing each other and hugging them. And, when you're younger, you say, okay, this is what we got to look forward to try to get a little further than what we did this year. And, things just didn't turn out that well.
Saying, look, when you get big 3 out of 4 times, pack your bags and go home. Had a great season, great year. They beat us 3 out of 4. You can't say I was lucky.
We lost the Final Four. It took a little while to really understand what we had accomplished anyhow because we wanted it so bad. So I believe I didn't really get over it until maybe my junior year. I realized what we had accomplished and that, to move on. My
feelings today is that we left something on the table. And we could have not only been known as the first team to get to the Final Four, but we could have been known as national champions.
They masked their disappointment fairly well, but I think that I think that they realized that they wanted to be challenged by the best team. And people can always say what if, but I think if you talk to Chris Mullin, he'd tell you that he wouldn't trade the chance to play those games over for anything. I think that had they won that game, they would have won the national championship.
It's been more than a quarter century since St. John's made its bid for the national crown. Yet even without the title, the team and the school still occupy a special place within everyone who was there for the ride.
Well, for St. John's fans, that team's legacy is going to be as a Final Four team, as a team that established St. John's as a dominant force in the East Coast, certainly the dominant force in New York City forever. It achieved primacy in what was then clearly the greatest basketball league in the country. I think it also sets a difficult standard for teams to live up to because that team was so beloved, it was so well regarded, and it was so successful that so many St. John's, even 25 years later, whoever wears that uniform, whoever coaches on that sideline, is always going to be held up to what that team accomplished and what that coach accomplished.
That team, for some reason, caught the imagination of a lot of people. That was the New York team. People loved that team. I don't know because it was the makeup, the way they played, or what. There was something of an attachment. And I think New York City was looking for that.
Because even to this day, I get frustrated thinking about Georgetown. Wish I could get one more shot at them, But it really taught me how to, live with things like that.
I can honestly say that everything I do, everything that I attempt to do, everything I plan to do, there's a piece of St. John's that goes into it.
St. John's overall was an absolute phenomenal experience. Being a part of that team was fantastic, but the way I matured as a man, as a person, is a great tribute to what the university and Coach Conasecker gave to me as a gift for the rest of my life and for me to pass on, to my family.
Within a few years of their title run, the St. John's Redmen of 1984-85 had scattered, not only throughout the country, but throughout the world. Many went on to careers in professional basketball, both in the United States and overseas. Today, they're successful businessmen, educators, youth counselors, coaches, and broadcasters, bringing the work ethic and commitment that they did to the basketball court to their current careers. Since leaving St. John's, they've had a collective impact on thousands of lives throughout the world. Yet they will always be part of a select group that shared an unforgettable moment in time and will always be known as the city's champions.